Hey guys, it's LJ here, welcome back to another video. So I wanted to do something slightly different today, and I wanted to talk to you about my primary diagnosis, which is lupus. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through a little bit about what lupus is, then I will share with you sort of my process, my journey up to where we are now. Lupus is an autoimmune condition, and what this means, there's a group of conditions that are autoimmune conditions, and what it means is your immune system, that part of your body that fights off diseases, that keeps you healthy, that helps you, deal with all these foreign bodies, gets confused, and it sees your body and your cells as invaders. So basically it starts to fight itself. Hello baby, hello, are you going to come and say hello? No, you're just going to sit off the side. No, you are going to come and say hello. You're gonna, okay. So yeah, lupus is a condition where your body basically attacks itself. It doesn't really understand what is foreign bodies that are bad and what is healthy tissue, and so it starts to attack itself. And this happens with all autoimmune conditions. Some of them specify certain parts of the body, certain organs, some are all over. Now there are two main types of lupus. You've got discoid lupus, which is more to do with the skin and to do with so you get this rash across your face known as the butterfly rash, which is why the symbol for lupus is now a butterfly. However, it's called lupus because they used to think the rash looked like a wolf bite, and I fully embrace that the butterfly is the lupus symbol, but I quite like the concept of being like a wolf rather than a butterfly. That's just me. Yes, it's called lupus as in lupine because they used to think that the rash that you get was sort of akin to a wolf bite. It looks that sort of shape back in days gone by. So now you get this butterfly rash across your face, which you can get at any point. It usually gets worse after being in direct sunlight, various things like that. That is not the type of lupus that I have. I have SLE, which is, and I always say this wrong, systemic lupus erythematosus, I think. I just call it SLE or lupus. And this is where it can attack and affect any part of your body. So any of your organs, your heart, lungs, skin, kidney, liver, all of those can be affected, or none of them can be affected. Part of the big issue with lupus is it's different in every patient, because it has so many symptoms. It's hard to diagnose because it can often be diagnosed as other things. So in terms of how they diagnose lupus, it's a tricky one. The symptoms of lupus, because they vary so much from person to person to person and are wide-reaching, they can be mistaken for other things. So because lupus can affect any sort of organ in your body, you could possibly be treated for some sort of problem with your liver, for example, when it's actually the lupus that's the problem. And I'll go into that because there is a little bit of a story with how I got diagnosed with that. So in order to fully diagnose lupus, when you see your consultant, usually a rheumatologist to start with, they will do your history, they'll look at your symptoms, they'll do this whole sort of holistic thing, and then they will do an intense blood panel. Now, I don't like needles. I've been scared of needles since I was a kid. I had an unfortunate incident with a needle when I was younger, which I'll tell you about at some point, and I've always been scared of needles. So if I go for blood tests, I have to put something over my eyes, look away, the whole 9 yards. Don't tell me what you're doing, just do it, I don't want to know. I managed to give blood before I was diagnosed for about 5 years, and it was always traumatic. And again, I was like, once the needle's in, I'm fine, it's just the needle going in. So, I've kind of got more used to it, should I say. But when you go for blood tests, they do maybe 3 or 4 vials, yeah? Yeah. First blood test I had, I wasn't looking, I'm thinking, what's going on? I can feel her movement. And I was like, what is going on? And she finished, she took the needle out, I put the thing on, and there's 11 vials sat on the side, and I was like, oh my god, that's insane. I walked off, literally got halfway down the corridor, and she's like, oh, come back, I forgot some. So she went in the other arm and did another 5. Like, it was just like, wow, okay, I've never had that many taken in one go. And they basically test for everything. And I forget off the top of my head the percentage, I'll put it up here for you. But a very high percentage of people with lupus have a positive ANA score. And that is basically looking at your infection markers. Because it is to do with your immune system, so your infection markers will be higher. So yeah, as I've said, it can affect any part of your body. You can have really bad flares where you're struggling and in hospital, and then you can have times where it lessens. It is a lifelong condition, and there is no cure currently. There are medications that make the symptoms more tolerable. There are quite a few medications actually. There's a few different sort of types of medication you can have, and they do help with the symptoms, but they can't cure it. They can deal with the underlying situations and why your immune system is going off. It can sort of dampen that down, which is great because that then sort of eases off the symptoms. However, you're then immunocompromised, for example, like you are with chemo and things like that. So it can be very difficult, especially in times currently, which is why, people were asked to shield and not leave the house, because, if you've got a compromised immune system and you get hit with something like that, you can get very, very ill. So that's a little bit of background on lupus. I am by no means a scholar, I am by no means a professional. I'm just telling you things that I have learned and understood and comprehended. So that's just me. So how I discovered that I had it. Well, we do not know when I developed it. I'm just going to put that out there. We don't know when I developed it. So I'm going to have to do a bit of a story here so you can understand the process. So I used to live in a flat in a masonette barber shop. It was wonderful. I loved that place. But because it was a barber shop, there were metal stairs outside. And I, as you've seen in one of my previous videos, which I'll link, whichever side it is. This side? I'm still not used to this yet. I'll link the video where I talk about my hip. And so I've had hip problems for a long time. And those metal stairs were just getting more and more difficult to deal with because the pain was immense. So, and we wanted to buy an actual house because the masonette was mine. I was my name only on the mortgage. I bought it on my own. Then my other half moved in. That was great. We then wanted to buy a house together. Fair enough. So we went house hunting and it was a bit all over the place. And then we found this place, which was perfect for so many reasons. One of the main reasons being, on the ground floor, you can go in through our garage and there is a bedroom and bathroom. So the plan was, when I have my hip replacement, I can live down there basically, because I've got a bedroom and bathroom. I apologise if that tail just went across the screen. The plan was I can live down there. Obviously, I'd need to come upstairs for food, various other things, but my basic amenities are all on the same floor. Whereas in the house, they're on the second floor. So technically we have 3 floors. We've got 2 floors in the basement, basically, which is where the garage is. So it's technically the basement, but it's the ground floor. I'm not explaining that very well, sorry. So that was the plan. So we moved in here January 2018, and I was due to have my hip replaced in February 2018, the end of February. So I had the date. It was on a Saturday. Everything was sorted. Yeah, wonderful, brilliant. Then my shoulders, and yeah, so literally 5 days before my operation, my right shoulder started to hurt. Got worse and worse and worse. I couldn't move it. Ended up going into the hospital on Saturday, and they were like, "Oh, it's really bad." I was like, "Yeah, I had phoned you and told you, but it's really bad." And the surgeon literally heard about it and said, "I reckon it's this problem." Did a MRI or an X-ray, I can't remember. Did a scan and was like, "Yeah, it's definitely this." Bless him, he was really nice though. He's like, "Look, we've got time in surgery. Come in. I'll see if I can get the problem and fix it. He couldn't. So that was February. They operated on it in September. So from February to September, I couldn't lift my arm above here. I mean, literally couldn't even get it to shoulder height. It was a nightmare. So couldn't brush my hair, couldn't wash my hair, couldn't dress myself, couldn't. It was awful. I was completely reliant on other people, and I felt like a toddler. It was horrible. So they fixed that in September. By the Christmas, I was back at work. I was already back at work part-time. It was brilliant. Apart from the fact that Christmas I got, there was the vomiting and diarrhea bug going around school, as there usually is at various points of the year. I got it, and for about 2 weeks on and off, I was feeling really sick, in the bathroom a lot. Like, it was not a pleasant couple of weeks, but it was okay. We went out for a Christmas meal with a couple of friends to do sort of like a present exchange and see each other. And hello, you're just going to show everyone your toe, you're not even going to come and say hello. And I ended up being very, very sick that night. I didn't eat anything, I couldn't, but I ended up being very, very sick that night, to the point where it was so uncomfortable and I was in so much pain that we ended up going to the hospital. Didn't call an ambulance, my dad phoned a friend and he drove us to the hospital. And yeah, I was in hospital for 2 weeks in total. I was in one hospital for about a week and 2 days, and I discharged myself on Christmas Eve because I was in a private room, which was lovely. You know, there weren't people around me. I was able to sleep. This was great. They were dealing with me. They were giving me the right anti-sickness stuff. It was great. Problem with it was they had another patient on the ward who was troublesome, should we say. And so I would sort of press the bell because I needed a nurse to come in, and it would be hour and 15 minutes before they came in. And I was just like, this is, you know, for such a low quality of care, I could be at home in my own bed. So I did. I discharged myself on Christmas Eve and I came home, and I was fine. Everything was going to be fine. I mean, it wasn't. It was awful. And on Christmas Day we ended up calling an ambulance, which took me to a different hospital. And the care there was great. Now, in the first hospital, I'd had a couple of scans. They did a colonoscopy for the camera. They did some x-rays. They did an ultrasound. They did a few bits and pieces. And all I got back was, no, everything's negative, everything's negative. Okay, great. So I get to the second hospital, tell them where I've been. They go and get the notes from the first hospital. So what the first hospital hadn't told me was there were issues with my liver tests, my liver function tests. There were issues with my pancreas. And when they did the colonoscopy, they took a biopsy. Now, I should have signed off for the biopsy, I discovered. I should have given them my permission, which I didn't do. Signed sheet, which I didn't do. So they did that without permission. Anyway, so I get to the new hospital and they're like, right, these are the issues they've found. So in tests, your liver and your pancreas are causing issues. But then on every scan and the biopsy were all clean. So there were problems, but they couldn't figure out what the problems were. Great, okay, fine. So I was in that hospital for maybe 4 or 5 days. They were like, right, we think we've got your sickness and everything under control now. Take these anti-sickness tablets home with you. Take one of them when you need it. Sorted. Brilliant. Started to feel better. Back at work when school opened, that was fine. About 3 weeks in, had an appointment with my hip surgeon to say, look, this shoulder's fixed, I'm great, let's go. So they put me on the list. I got a date within 3 weeks because there was cancellation. I was like, brilliant. A week later, this shoulder starts to hurt. Exactly the same situation. I couldn't move it, I couldn't lift it. I was like, oh my God. So I went to my GP and I was like, look, I'm probably just imagining it, but it feels exactly the same. And he's like, right, no worries, we'll do you an x-ray today. He sent me off for an urgent x-ray. Got down to the x-ray and I'm almost in tears at this point because I'm scared it's the same thing. The woman who did the x-ray was lovely. She's like, I'm not supposed to tell you or show you because I can't diagnose anything, but you can come and look at the x-ray. And it was exactly the same. So for both this and this shoulder, I had lumps of calcium which were causing blockages. So they were causing the muscle and the tendons and everything else to not work properly, which is why I couldn't lift it. It impinged it. It's called acute calcific tendonitis, and according to my surgeon, it is one of the most painful things, and I can attest to that. So that was the end of February. Now I can't move this arm. Middle of October, 2019 they operated. So that was another 8 months where I was completely reliant on other people because I couldn't brush my hair, wash my hair, change my top, couldn't do anything. So 2 more years of being in pain with my hip and 2 more years of not being able to do anything. Around the same time that the pain started in the shoulder, so February-ish, 2019, I started waking up in the morning and my hands would be sort of numb and painful. So I got exercise balls, the little physio balls you can get. And so every morning I'd get up and I'd just sit and I'd use these balls for 10-15 minutes until my hands loosened up, and it was fine. I assumed it was something linked to my shoulder, so obviously maybe there's a nerve or something trapped that's causing the problem. That's what I thought. So I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't mention it to a doctor or anything. Because I'd had the second shoulder, my hip surgeon referred me to an endocrinologist because he's like, is there a reason for these calcium deposits? I want to point out at this point that I'm lactose intolerant. So I don't consume milk, don't consume cheese, don't consume yoghurt. I rarely consume ice cream. When I do, I take lactose for it. I tend to eat more dark chocolate than milk chocolate, but I do eat chocolate. But I do try and use my lactose tablets when I'm going to. So I do not have an abundance of calcium. So I'm not quite sure where my body was getting all this excess calcium from, but it was somewhere. So went to the endocrinologist. They were like, can't really see anything else. They referred me to another ologist, and I cannot remember the name of it. But same thing, they couldn't find a problem. Then they referred me to a rheumatologist, which was a longer wait. And so all of this is going on. I'm just sort of waiting for results. My hands were getting so much worse. And so I saw my GP and I was like, I physically can't move them in the morning. So they suggested getting these gloves, the compression gloves. Traditionally these are grey or black. There is an awesome lady who dyes these, all sorts of different colours. I have quite a few colours. You'll see them around because I have to wear gloves every day, which is great in the winter and not so great in the summer. But so these compression guys basically squeeze my fingers, which help. The difficulty that I personally experience is they're not long enough because it's the fingers, the top joints of my fingers, which are very painful. But I digress. So I started wearing the gloves, and at this point I'm waking up in the morning and I can't even hold the balls, let alone squeeze them. I've got no strength. So I'm getting more and more concerned. So I get this appointment at the rheumatologist at Guy's in London, and I get up there and it's in the same spot. It's in the Lupus, in the Lupus Centre. So I went up with a friend of mine, and as we walked in I just laughed and went, it's never lupus. If you've watched House, you'll know I will be doing a video on that in a little bit because it's just, yeah, it makes me smile. So we're there. So he took a history, they did the ridiculous bloods, did all the different samples and bits and pieces that they could do. They did a scan through my nails to check how bad my circulation is, where they basically shine a very bright light through your nail and then you can see the circulation. And it's fascinating because you can see the valves open. I'm a bit of a science nerd and it fascinated me. I was really excited by it. Like in the past where I've had steroid injections in my hip, the guy that I see who does it is brilliant. He'll move the screen round so that I can see as well, so I can watch how the plate they find the right place and inject the dye and stuff. It's brilliant. I'm fascinated by that. Yeah, I'm a bit of a science geek. Anyway, off topic. So they do that. They do a few other tests. They also do something called a Schirmer's test, where if you've ever did sort of tests at school for acids and alkalis and things like that, you get filter paper. Same thing as coffee filters kind of are made of. And so you get this little sort of long thin strip of it and they put it in your eye. So they tuck it just under the bottom bit and get you to close your eyes for 5 minutes. Now the average person in 5 minutes, you'll get sort of 70% or more of this paper will be damp because the moisture in your eyes, there's something there, your eyes try and wash it out, you create a lot of moisture. That's why when you get something in your eye, you sort of tear up because it's trying to wash the irritant out. So majority of healthy people from 70 to 100% don't. Those people who are sort of ill at the time or struggling or have some sort of issues sort of normally do 30 to 50%. They see it as a diagnostic tool for Sjögren's syndrome at, I believe, 15%. Mine was bone dry. So after 5 minutes of having a piece of paper in my eyes had not produced any moisture. He was quite shocked. It was very painful, him removing these bits of dry paper that were stuck in my eyes. Yeah, so he was quite shocked at that, as was I. So we had all of these various things, and he turned around and he said, right, there's definitely some sort of inflammatory rheumatic condition. So we'll wait for the blood test results, we'll wait for this, we'll wait for that. Have an ultrasound of your hands. Now I thought ultrasounds, this shows my ignorance I guess, I thought ultrasounds were for sort of the squishier parts and the cavities, so looking inside your abdomen obviously during pregnancy, but they've done ultrasounds on sort of my liver and kidneys and things like that before. So I always thought it was for the soft tissue bits, but they did an ultrasound in my hand. I didn't realise that that was what it was used for, but apparently like up to 20% of the ultrasounds they do are on things like your hands and feet, which fascinated me. I didn't understand it at all. She let me look at the screen. I couldn't decipher a single thing. So, yeah, had all of those. At this time, I'm just getting more and more pain in my hands. I'm waking up in the morning really stiff, so I can't sit up in bed. My other half's having to help sit me up. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what is going on? Obviously, I've got a shoulder concern, but all of this. So in June 2019, I go back for my appointment, and he says, right, based on all of this, these are the issues that we believe you have. So it started off at that point with lupus, with Sjögren's syndrome. I really don't know how to pronounce it. It's spelled really weird. With rheumatoid arthritis and the knuckles in my hands, especially my middle fingers. They're definitely the one you can see. I'll add a picture and you can see the most sort of deformed, and they're so painful to touch. So I have rheumatoid arthritis in my hands, possibly also in my wrists, but not 100%. The shoulders are something totally unrelated because I'm just lucky. I have Sjögren's syndrome, which is dry eyes, dry mouth, it's generally dryness where there should be moisture in your body. So I get a dry mouth all the time. You'll probably hear on some videos it's very because my tongue is getting stuck to the roof of my mouth. So I have sort of eye sprays for it. Obviously I have to drink quite a lot, which is fine. I drink a lot of water anyway. I have the elusive teacher bladder, where I can drink like 3 or 4 litres of water and not need to go to the toilet, because my body is trained not to. Although since working from home I have lost teacher bladder, because I can go to the toilet whenever. I've lost my teacher bladder. I'm quite sad about that. And he wanted to add into the mix some sort of mixed connective tissue disorder, because there are issues elsewhere that haven't been fully addressed. So that was June 2019, at which point I was put on a very low dose of hydroxychloroquine. I was put on a low dose 3 times a week. And I was like, brilliant, great, sorted, this is going to help. Didn't help at all. Nothing really helped. I did all the exercise I was supposed to do. I wore my compression gloves. I did all these things. Nothing really helped. Had the shoulder operation in October, and the shoulder operations are brilliant because of all of my issues, my hip, my hands, my shoulders, everything else. I'm on a fair amount of medications, and I'm on some quite high dose painkillers, and the shoulder surgeries were both day surgeries, but because of the amount of painkillers I'm on, for them to give me a high enough dose of morphine to sedate me, they would have had to keep me in overnight. So rather than doing that, they put in a nerve block. So they basically injected in here, just numbed this whole side, so I didn't feel it, which was great. And I do have videos. I'll insert one here, because for about 12 hours after I get home, I have no control over my arm. You know the scene in Harry Potter where he breaks his wrist and the professor basically gets rid of his bones and his arm goes floppy? Yeah, that's what it was like. It was really funny, so I had a little video in here for you.
This is Laura's war wound. She looks like
And shoulder pad.
a hunchback of Notre Dame. And look, she cannot stop her arm.
Like, whatever direction.
So you cannot hold on to it?
No, I cannot do a thing. I can move those 3 fingers. But... I have to stop it because it keeps going. It was so funny. I probably shouldn't have been swinging it around the way that I was straight after an operation, but I couldn't feel anything and it made me laugh, so I did. Don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. It's a bit of a trend for this, isn't it? So that was that. In the November, I had another appointment, and I was like, look, I don't know what is going on, but this is not working. And instantly I saw a new doctor and they were like, well, you should be taking this every day, so we're going to bump it up to every day, not 3 times a week. I was like, okay, great. And they're like, right, and come back in a couple of months and we'll see how that's doing. So my next appointment was February 2020. End of February 2020, so fairly shortly before lockdown. It was already around. There were already things that were very much like, be careful, but there wasn't the full lockdown yet, because I was able to go to my appointment. And I went to the appointment, and they'd done new blood tests and stuff in the November. And based on those, my infection markers were just sky high. So they decided to add another medication to the mix. So that's when they put me on methotrexate. The hydroxychloroquine deals with more of the symptoms, so the pain, the stiffness, the fatigue, the muscle aches, all of that lot. Whereas the methotrexate deals with that plus the sort of underlying issues, tries to subdue the immune system. So it's an immunosuppressant, so it does lower your immune system, which obviously makes you more susceptible to other things, which is why the whole year, with everything going on, has been quite traumatic actually and quite scary for me and a number of other people in my position. So they put me on that, and they were going to put me on the lowest dose, but they knew everything that was going on with the virus. So what they said was, we're not going to put you on the lowest dose, because ordinarily when you go on methotrexate, you have it, 2 weeks later you have a blood test, 2 weeks later they adjust the dose if it's going well, 2 weeks later a blood test, 2 weeks later adjust the dose. So they keep doing that until they get you to a sensible level. Because of the lockdowns and me having to travel to London and everything else, they went, right, we're going to put you in straight away on the 3rd level. So rather than building up slowly, we're just going to put you on this level so that you don't have to keep coming back. And then we're just going to monitor you with bloods. So they did, and it knocked me out. So I would take it. I was advised to take it. I take it once a week, and the day after I would sleep the whole day. So I'd take it, say, on a Wednesday night, for example. No, I was taking it on Saturday, sorry. I'd take it on a Saturday night. I would sleep all of Sunday. And not you're tired and sleeping. It was I physically cannot wake you up sleep. My other half would just shake me, would sit me up, would talk to me, and I'd be just like, I'd be unable to open my eyes, I couldn't do anything. So I did a clip a couple of weeks ago where I was sort of talking about being in treacle, and it was like that but much worse. And so it took quite a few months for me to actually get over that initial reaction. So once a week I would do that. I would lose the whole Sunday, and then I'd lose part of Monday, which was fine when I was shielding because I wasn't going to work. Then everything changed, and so I changed the day that I take it. So I now take it, because I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I take it on a Wednesday night or a Thursday morning, and then I'm not losing any time that should be my work time. So, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. I was put on high dose steroids. I totally missed that out in the story. So when my hands started, that was it. My hands were getting really bad. So the start of 2019, my GP put me on high dose steroids to try and calm down the swelling and the pain. So as of now, we are January 2020. I have been on... No, we are January 2021. I have been on steroids for over 2 years. And I was on a high dose for a long time. In the summer of 2020, I developed Cushing's, which is a reaction to the steroids, to the cortisol, to sort of just the build-up of it in my body. So at that point we started to reduce the dose of steroids. We got me down as low as possible. So I'm at quite a low dose now, but I'm in pain. If I go any lower, I physically can't cope. It's just I'm in tears. I would like to go a dose higher than I'm on, because then I'm in less pain. But this sort of level is painfully functional. And it's a toss-up, because I know that I'm going to be in pain, but I know a lower dose is better. So when I developed Cushing's, as I've mentioned in a previous video, basically in 3 weeks, I sort of ballooned up on almost 2 stone. Didn't change anything. I was already following a healthy eating nutrition plan, because the steroids were making me eat more because I was hungry and I hadn't really paid attention to it. But I put on a lot of weight very quickly, and there was, I showed a clip of the two different faces like 3 weeks apart. So then we started reducing the thing, and in December, I was supposed to see my rheumatologist in October, but I tested positive for COVID twice. I ended up in hospital for 4 days. Yay! Which was fun. I had my own private room because I had tested positive, and everyone coming in and out of the room was covered in one-use PPE that went in the bin, and I felt like it was such a horrible waste, because they were wasting it to come and see me. But anyway, so I finally got to see speak to my rheumatologist on the phone in December. And I spoke to a different doctor than I normally do, so we had to go through the whole process. So he increased the methotrexate by 1 tablet. So that upped my dose, and in the couple of weeks that I've been taking that has completely re-knocked me. I'd kind of built up my tolerance, and I was still struggling, but I wasn't sleeping whole days. Whereas now I kind of am. I'm getting sort of an hour or 2 useful the day afterwards. But anyway, I go back and see them in 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks today, in fact, of the day of filming this, and they are considering bumping it up again, which will then be the sort of standard dose, as he said, for what 80% of people who take methotrexate are on. So that will be interesting. The plan for that is then a couple of months after that, hopefully, to completely come off the steroids. So we're hoping that the methotrexate will sort of deal with the issues in my hands, so I can come off the steroids. So that's all where I'm at in my journey. In terms of the way that the lupus affects me, fatigue is a big one. Now I used to suffer from insomnia, and I used to get really frustrated because my other half would just get into bed and fall asleep like 5 minutes after his head hit the pillow, and I'd be awake for hours. I hated it. I used to wish I could just fall asleep. Then this hit me and I got fatigued and all of this, and it was sort of like a punch in the face because all I could do was sleep. Since being on the methotrexate, it's better, but I'm just so tired. Like earlier we had a shower, and my other half has to help me because I can't like put my top and things on and off for showering, and wash my hair. And I got upstairs to dry my hair, and I literally spent 5 minutes with my hairdryer in my hand, and I had to lay down for half an hour because I was exhausted. Like I physically couldn't sit up any longer. I was sort of properly going, and not like I'd done anything particularly strenuous earlier in the day. It just comes in waves and it hits you. So fatigue is a big issue. Pain is another issue that I struggle with. I've had pain in my hip for 12, 13 years, but now I have issues with my knees, my heels. I wake up in the morning and the back of my heel, sort of where not the base of my foot, but the back of my heel, it feels like I've been like pressing my heel into the bed all night or something. It was so painful. My knees are sore, my hip obviously, my wrists, my shoulders, my hands. My hands are the worst affected. And these 2 knuckles here are the worst. And I think the top knuckles ache more just because the gloves don't quite reach them. But yeah, my hands are definitely the worst affected. So this affects writing. I got a blister on this finger from doing like half an hour's writing a couple of weeks ago. So writing, typing, cutting. Sometimes I have to get my other half to cut my food up because I physically can't get the pressure into a knife. It's just, I just feel stupid sometimes because I can't do things. Like I can't open a drawer or turn a door handle, or like it's ridiculous. I've stopped drinking from glasses because I tend to drop things so often. So what I do is I carry a bottle of water around with me, because if I drop it as plastic. And then on days where I know my hands are better, I can actually use glasses and cups and things, but I don't want to break them by using them when things are gonna fall out of my hand, as they often do. So the fatigue, the pain, it's hard to explain it, but the lack of capacity. So obviously doing physical things hurts, but my brain seems to have switched off half the time. Like I used to joke that I destroyed my brain doing my degree and things, but sort of like the brain fog is intense. Like I'll forget words, I'll forget what I'm saying halfway through a sentence, I'll just not be able to follow a conversation. I used to read all the time. I loved reading. Now I can't read, it just frustrates me because I read the same line over and over and over again, trying to understand it, to comprehend what I'm reading. It's so frustrating. And I just feel so useless. Like, I used to be able to, do all the cleaning and do whatever on one day, which is clean the house. Whereas now, I, clean the bathroom, I'm done for the day. It's ridiculous. And I just feel like so much of a sub person because I'm relying on other people for so many things. Shining example of which is in the mornings. So I have medications that I take at night and the morning. I have them all divided into my pill dividers. So in the morning, I physically cannot move. I'm so stiff and sore. So my other half, bless him, gets up, and while I'm lying down, pours liquid in my mouth and pours my tablets in for me to swallow, and then puts my gloves on. And then I have to lie in bed for, say, half an hour to an hour to allow the medications to kick in. So he gives me painkillers and he gives me my morning meds, and after about an hour I can usually get up. I'm often very stiff when that happens, but at least I can usually sort of sit myself up by then. But not always. Sometimes I can't. He has to come and help me physically out of bed. And I just feel like a toddler in the body of a mid-30s woman. It's a nightmare, and I absolutely hate it. And so when I talk to the doctors about it, obviously we know when I was diagnosed, we know when my hand started, but the whole issue where I was in hospital at Christmas and I had the pancreas and the liver worries, but there was no physical thing, we don't know if that is what caused the lupus to appear or whether that was part of it. Because you can get lupus for a variety of reasons. Or sort of, I think a fair few autoimmune conditions can be elevated, exaggerated, pushed forward if you have sort of a trauma, so say an accident, or you're very ill or something like that. So that hospital visit, that sort of 2 week, month long, and then the 2 week period, we don't know if that was part of the lupus or if that sort of traumatising experience was what kicked the lupus into overdrive. I've not been the healthiest of people all the way through my life. I've always had issues, like my appendix was a recurring problem. I had a grumbling appendix for years. It took them years to take it out. Same with my tonsils. I'd have tonsillitis all the time. I ended up, they still haven't taken my tonsils out, but touch wood, my tonsils seem to be behaving at the moment. Why did I say that? That's all going to go. That's going to kick me in the face right now. Although to be fair, I did lose my voice and I have an incredibly sore throat for the last week and a bit, so but yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at with my lupus situation. I had to cut my work hours, so I was working 5 days a week, and I had to cut them down because I just wasn't physically able to do 5 days a week. And originally I was going to do 5 mornings because that was sort of the best setup for work. But my consultant suggested do it over as fewer days as possible so you have more days to recover. So now I work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to sort of recover, which I do need. So that's why I take my methotrexate now on a Wednesday night or a Thursday morning, because after I've done 3 days at work I'm going to be tired anyway, so I might as well deal with the results of the medication on the same day that I'm going to be tired. And it is frustrating because I still lose like a day since they've upped the medication, but it's better than feeling awful for all 7 days. Now I lose a day, but the other 5-6 days I feel okay. It's a real toss-up, it's a real balancing act, and one of the things that I really want to work on for myself this year is acknowledging my limits. Right now my limits just frustrate me because I look back and I did a full-time degree while working full-time. So my degree I did on a Tuesday night and all day Saturday at university, and I worked 5 days a week as an unqualified teacher. So I was planning, delivering lessons, marking work. I then had the most awful NQT year. My year group partner was also an NQT. He had a nervous breakdown at October half term, and so I was then marking books for 2 classes and basically teaching 2 classes. They had supply teachers come in, and the supply teacher would stay for like a week and then go. Eventually they did get another supply in who was long term and stayed, and she saved my life. But I was doing sort of 110 hour weeks. I'd be up at 6, I'd be at school at 7 when it opened. I would work all the way through. I would sometimes have lunch while marking, sometimes I wouldn't even eat. I'd leave at 6 o'clock. I lived around the corner, so I'd get home at 6:15, and I'd work through until midnight. And at some point during that time, they'll come put food in front of me and say, stop, you need to eat. Weekends, I'd be up and I'd be working till midnight, 1 in the morning, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I genuinely don't know how I did it. But even before that, when I was slightly younger, I'd have 3 or 4 part-time jobs around college because, you know, I've just always been like that. I've always been busy, I've always worked, I've always done things. Because I had the childhood that I had, I was working from a fairly young age to support myself. So I've always been able to do that. And now I can't, and I just feel useless. And I know I shouldn't, because I didn't choose it, and, you know, all of this. And there are lots of reasons why I can't do certain things. Like, objectively, I get it. If I'm imagining someone else in my position, I get it. But for myself, I still berate myself for not being able to do the things I can't do. So this year, apart from trying to get back to my pre-illness weight, because I have put on a lot of weight with the steroids and the lack of mobility and everything else, I want to work on accepting and acknowledging my limits, because I shouldn't, or I make it worse when I can't do something and then I berate myself about it. So that's what I want to work on this year. So yeah, that's sort of a bit of background on lupus and my journey and where I'm at. And yeah, I mean, if you have any questions about lupus, please let me know down below. I am more than happy to talk about things to do with lupus or any of the other conditions that I currently have. They did mention that I might have markers for fibromyalgia, but I'm not really going to add that to my list of diagnoses because it hasn't been diagnosed and I have enough already, thanks very much. So yeah, I mean, if you've got any questions, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. And if you've got any other subjects you'd like me to talk about or talk about my experiences of, I can do that too. I'm going to sort of try and do a bit of a mishmash on this channel of things, but I am going to be talking quite a lot about my health. So on the 21st is when I go and see my consultant again for my lupus, so I'll be able to give you a bit more of an update then. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I can tell you right at this moment. This video is more than long enough, so I am going to sign off and I will see you on the next one. I hope you're having a wonderful week and I'll see you soon. Loopy love, bye.